Alright. Hi, my name is Josh, and I'm good at debate. I will be affirming today. Alright. I affirm resolved. The United States is justified in intervening in the interpolitical processes of other countries to attempt to stop human rights abuses. Before I begin this debate, I would like to offer several definitions which will create the backbone of my case, courtesy of Oxford dictionaries. Justified is defined as having done or marked by a good or legitimate reason. Intervene, to take part in something so to prevent or alter the course of events. Political, the activities associated with the governance of a country or area. Internal, relating to the affairs and activities within a country. Attempt, to make an effort to achieve or complete. Observation 1. The resolution's use of the term attempt, meaning the effort to achieve, frames the debate in a deontological setting in which the means and the justifications are evaluated prior to the action's success. Observation 2. The resolution states that we are justified to intervene in human rights violations. We are by no means obligated to interfere, so the resolution doesn't impose an infinite burden on the United States. My value will be maximizing human rights. As stated by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person, regardless of what nation or what people. This is an achievement all must strive for, which is why my value criterion is cosmopolitanism, originating from a Greek word that meant, a Greek idea that meant being a citizen of the world. This idea of being a citizen of the world becomes important to uphold human rights. As Held in 08 puts it, cosmopolitan principles disclose the proper framework for the pursuit of an argument, discussion, and negotiation about a particular sphere of value, equality and liberty, social justice. Only in such an order can you uphold the equal moral standing of all human beings and build a politically robust and ethically sound conception of the proper basis of political community. Contention 1. U.S. intervention is preferable to that of other nations. If the United States doesn't interfere with a country, another country will. Cindy Hurst in 08. Much of China's aid to Africa comes in the form of advanced creditor loans. This is a concern because dealing with Chinese companies does not come with the same ethical conditions as dealing with Western companies, which have non-governmental organizations monitoring their activities, as well as shareholders asking questions. According to Gao Luft, the co-director of the Institute for Analysis of Global Security, the Chinese way of doing business could reverse the progress on fighting corruption and delivering benefits to African citizens. The United States are much safer in the hands to have human rights atrocities handled. The fact of the matter is that other countries will exploit other countries in the name of human rights, claiming to give aid. Hurst in 06 explains that an approach China takes to ensuring good relations with Africa is that of unconditional support, turning a blind eye to human rights issues, as Africa has also been cited for numerous human rights issues. China does not demand a good human rights and governance track record, as do packages from the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, while the United States promotes better business practices in the global business environment. China's growing influence in Africa is therefore counterproductive to the objectives of promotion and human rights and abolishing corruption. Contention 2. The United States multilateral action has proven effective. According to the Department of State Office spokesperson in 2012, diplomats will encourage more robust, multilateral efforts to prevent and respond to atrocities. Burdens are appropriately shared by other nations and will require cultivating deeper and broader support among our bilateral partners, as well as encouraging regional organizations. According to Anne-Marie Slaughter in 2003, the United Nations speaks for the entire international community, and when it speaks in unison, it projects a moral authority that no other individual government can match. Wars used to be fought nation against nation, but the United Nations bars the use of force against nations in their internal relations and seeks to replace it with the collective authorization of force in response to a threat to the peace or a breach to the peace or an act of aggression. When international peace and security are jeopardized, the Security Council is charged with determining the gravity of the threat and the appropriate remedy. When it does act, or when it authorizes a member of the state to act, the action is undertaken on behalf of the entire international community. The White House Office Press Secretary in 2012 stated that the United States will work with the United Nations to strengthen UN capacity for conflict prevention and crisis management, including those through preventative diplomacy and medication, especially when the UN missions encounter escalating atrocity threats. Riviero in 2010 explains that the United States is working with other countries to advance trans-regional agenda for human rights. They collaborated with Guinea and Kyrgyzstan to ensure that 2 resolutions focused on those countries were adopted. The same for Sudan. They worked with Indonesia, Nigeria, and Maldives to pass a resolution to establish a mandate on freedom of association. A few months ago, an Egyptian-American team began working on a resolution for the freedom of expression. Empirically, the United States intervention has set a positive example to assist actions of human rights. Janet Welch in 2012 explains that the International Violence Against Women Act presents a comprehensive plan for the U.S. foreign assistance to prevent and remedy violence against women and girls. A structure will be created to support more coordinated and intensified efforts in up to 20 countries to improve the full range of services that survivors need. In recent years, the Congolese government and non-governmental organizations have increased their efforts to provide medical, psychological, economic, and legal support to rape survivors. The United States has been successful in diplomatic multilateral attempts at helping the human rights situations across the world. And to negate the resolution is to say that we're not justified in continuing to stop acts of aggression and acts of human abuse. I'll stand open to cross-examination and further points of clarification.
Okay, so you advocate, sorry, is everybody ready? Okay, so you advocate a multilateral action, right?
Yeah.
So when in the past has a multilateral action been effective?
The examples that I cited was that the United States working with Guinea, Kyrgyzstan, Indonesia, Nigeria, Maldives, and Egypt,
so you
along
would,
with Congolese governments.
Okay, so you would consider like, oh, never mind actually. Okay, so in your, oh crap, this is the wrong case. Okay, so that's yours too. Okay, so in your observation 2, you talk about how we're like justified to intervene in human rights, like, and that doesn't mean we're obligated, so the resolution doesn't impose mandate burden. So like,
Yeah.
if how do we pick and choose when we should intervene? Like, if we have all these awful scenarios of human rights violations, how is it moral for us to think, oh, well, they're worse off, so we should help them, but not them because we probably can't afford it? Like, how does that?
Well, generally, whenever we prioritize, we'll do it on basis of imminency, which is basically how bad the situation is relative to the rest of the world. And because I think that anyone would agree that the United States cannot handle every single human rights abuse on their own, or even in multilateral attempts. It's a massive problem that has to be dealt with on a really a case-by-case basis, and the United States has to sort of determine how we're going to deal with that and bestly use our resources.
Okay, you also talk about how, because of the word attempt, we have to frame this debate in a deontological perspective, but like, looking at how the way other cultures interact with the United States, how is a deontological perspective going to account for the fact that like, okay, so let me rephrase this, like, how can we justify deontologically to someone who we choose not to like provide human rights for? Like, how are they going to understand?
Because we're saying that we're justified in intervening. The resolution states that we're not obligated to intervene, and so whenever you look at the observation 2 talking about deontology, it's the fact that we want to solve these problems. It's the fact that our methods and what we're trying to do is solve a problem, and whether or not we're actually able to achieve success is not the prima facie issue whenever you're determining a justification.
Okay, so given that the resolution also prescribes like an end for us to attempt, and that we're trying to stop human rights abuses, why is a deontological perspective preferable to a consequentialist?
Because the specific word attempt is just to make an effort. It doesn't talk about the success whatsoever, really.
Okay, so regardless of the harm that we inflict by intervening in other countries' political processes.
Regardless of the harm, I disagree with the fact that there's a harm, but even if there, because of the resolutions I talked about in the Riviero card and the Janet Walsh card, however, even if they did have negative consequences, because we're framing this deontologically, it doesn't matter because our justifications were decided beforehand.
Okay.